Hi, this is Dave's News, the podcast, episode 2.
On this episode, we'll be having a political theme, as the last episode was about future technology. So, Dave, what are we going to talk about this time?
The election.
The Canadian election?
Yes.
What about? How do you feel about the election?
I think Larry Brock should have, and Aaron O'Toole should have been voted for our Prime Minister of Canada.
Is that so? You are not a fan of Justin Trudeau, is what you're saying?
No.
Why? What about Justin Trudeau is what you think he is unable to run this country?
I think he's going to make unfair judgment. I think Justin Trudeau is going to make unfair judgment to our rights and the way about the vaccine and everything.
So for you, the important thing is the vaccine and all this coronavirus stuff.
I think we should have right to choose to get the vaccine. Not everyone wants to get the vaccine, and some people do. The people that don't want to get it shouldn't be forced to get it.
What about masks, Dave? How do you feel about masks?
I think masks should be choosable as well.
Okay, so you can kind of choose if you want to wear one, choose if you don't want to wear one?
Right.
Okay. And you think that the Trudeau government will enforce vaccines and masks?
They'll enforce too much out of people, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like, smoking, right? As another...
Yeah.
Another one of your staff pointed out, you used to be able to smoke indoors, and now you have to smoke down the street. Where do they draw the line?
Exactly.
So, with that being said, you feel like Aaron O'Toole and the Conservative government would have given us a little more freedom?
Yes.
Do you think they would be all freedom? Like, no masks, no vaccines, just go wild?
I think it would be the majority of freedom, but not all freedom.
Okay, and you're okay with so you think that we should have a little limitations because of the coronavirus?
I think we should wear masks, and I think we should choose to get the vaccine, but we don't have to. But I think we should choose to. It would be safer.
Okay. So, as for, I guess, we're kind of on this topic, zeroing in on Ontario, which is the province we live in, we do have a Conservative Prime Minister of Doug Ford.
Right.
So, you think that Doug Ford has been doing a pretty good job with Ontario's COVID rules and restrictions?
Yes.
So, you are a big Doug Ford fan as well?
Yep.
Okay, so you're a conservative voter.
Yep.
Okay, so how do you see the next 4 years? So except for the COVID stuff, how else do you think Justin Trudeau will affect this country?
I don't know the future, but I don't think it looks good for us.
Okay, that's fair. So it's not looking like Justin Trudeau, in your eyes, is a strong enough prime minister to lead Canada into the future.
Right.
Well, so then, Dave, we do have what they call a minority government. So it's not that Trudeau has as much power as he could have had, because there was a lot of Canadians that felt your political bearings there and wanted Aaron O'Toole or even the People Party guy to go in, right?
Right.
I was a bit surprised by the turnout as well. I thought maybe it might have been a Conservative minority government, but looking at the polls beforehand, it was split 50-50 about. However, but Dave, like I was saying earlier, you had voted for, and you were very vocal about your support for the Brant County riding representative Larry Brock, who actually did win in this area of Ontario.
Yes, and I'm glad he won for Brantford.
Yeah, did it? Does that come as a surprise? Seeing as when we walk around certain areas of the city, there was a lot of support signs and around.
Yeah, there's a lot of signs on pretty much every property. Yeah.
So you think that Larry Brock will do a good job defending the rights of Canadians?
Yes, I think he'll do a very good job.
So, if there was an election again, you would still think Justin Trudeau should be out?
I think I would vote Larry. What's his name?
Aaron O'Toole?
I think I would vote Aaron O'Toole and Larry Brock.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's a really interesting thing. I guess the other thing we could kind of talk about is how do you feel about, things like universal basic income, Dave? Do you know what that is? Do you know what a universal basic income is?
Not really.
So it's pretty much that every Canadian gets money from the government to live with, regardless if you work or not. How do you feel about that? Do you think every Canadian should have a little bit of money to live with?
Yes.
So
at least $1,000 per person.
At least $1,000 per person.
That has mental disabilities or challenges that they can't have a job with.
So, okay, so you think that people who are on disability should have more money to live with?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a little bit different than a universal basic income, but that's still a really important thing to you, right?
Yes. I think people with disabilities should have money to use for their important life daily instead of having to work, because not everyone with a disability can work.
That's totally true, right?
Yes.
And even if some people with disabilities can work, they might not make enough hours or be able to work enough hours to really support themselves.
Right.
So on that issue, you are a little more on giving people some money if they can't work. However, what if someone can work, Dave? Do you think that the government should give them money just to live, or do you think those people should get a job?
What people?
The people that can work and just don't want to. Or
I think the people that can work should be able to get a job instead of always getting money.
Okay. That works. Right? I like that. I like that you are being so open about how you feel. Now, there's another one, Dave. There's also this, I guess in Canada it's been pretty important, is the Indigenous issues. The First Nations, Native people. Do you think that they should have more control over the land of Canada?
I think everyone should have at least a fair amount of the country.
So, hold on, Dave. You think that we should all have like a different section of the country that's our own little property?
I think everyone should have a piece of the country. I think, every race or every different kind of people should have a fair amount of the piece of the country that they can support.
Okay, so it kind of like neighborhoods like in Toronto, where you'll have the Koreatown, where they have a big Korean population.
Yeah.
You think that people should have like a little part of the country that they can kind of morph into what they need for their way of life?
Yeah.
Okay. What about homeless people, Dave? How do you feel about homeless or hard to house? Like how should we deal with that situation?
I think for homeless, there should be more centers for homeless people to gather in, so they're not out in the cold.
Okay. What about in the summer when it's not so cold?
I think they should still have centers operating even in the summer, fall, and winter, and spring. Because no matter what, I think homeless people should have a right to have a roof over their head.
Okay. What about if we could designate little areas, green spaces where we pop up little towns, little tiny houses. Would you be okay with that? Or do you think that might be too much?
I think what's coming in the next future is 3D printed houses that are small, which homeless people could live in because it's cheaper to pay for a 3D printed house than it is to pay for an actual big sized house.
Oh, okay. So we could 3D print houses for people who are hard to house, homeless.
I think more homeless people should get more 3D printed houses built for them so they can have a proper life.
I guess I was thinking more about another group of people that are usually marginalized. How do you feel about the criminal justice system of Canada? Do you think that we arrest people too easily? Like, for example, Dave, what about drugs? Do you think that drugs should be illegal and you should be thrown in jail?
I think if you sell drugs on the street, I think that should be illegal.
Okay.
And I also think there should be more cameras on the streets where there's drug selling activity, where there's more crime in areas of the city. I think they should have more cameras where there's more crime.
Okay, that's an interesting idea. So around, say, like Toronto, I think Toronto would be a good area. The police investigate and do their research to look at high drug areas.
Right.
And they put cameras on all the posts and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and they see it, and would it be like kind of live? Like security? Like they would pay a couple officers to watch these security tapes and they see something?
Yes.
Then they do a bust right there?
Yep.
In that scenario, Dave, if someone's selling the drugs and someone's buying the drugs, should the person who's buying the drugs also go to jail?
I think both parties, the seller and the buyer, should get punished because they both know better and they shouldn't be selling or buying either way.
Okay. So in your political bearings, you are for criminalization of drugs. So you want them to go to jail and maybe learn a lesson?
Yes.
Okay. What about rehabs and stuff?
I think they should get rehab in jail before they're released.
Okay, so you're saying they still get punished, but they go to rehab too. So
yes.
There's both. There's you don't do this and kind of how to go about going through your life.
Right.
Well, that's an interesting one, Dave. I think that's a really cool perspective. Well, is there anything else you want to chat about? Any other?
No, that's funny.
All right. So, well, it was a really interesting discussion today, Dave.
Thank you guys for listening.
All right. Thanks again, and we're off.